Welcome back, PWHL fans. Recently, Team Canada announced the roster for this upcoming Women's World Championships, and wow, did it catch me by surprise. This has me feeling so pumped, especially with the fact that Ann-Renée Desbiens is still on it despite her having a supposed knee injury. Today I want to discuss a little bit of the roster, especially the goaltending situation. So both Ann-Renée Desbiens and Emerance Maschmeyer suffered what looked like knee injuries after they were bumped into in the middle of a play, and each one of them had to be helped off the ice during their respective games. And it was quite the scary sight to see. Ottawa did place Maschmeyer in long-term injury reserve, and the team did come out and say that they expect her to be back before the end of the season. But unfortunately, it was determined that she will not participate at the World, so it gave room for 21-year-old Eve Gascon to make the team. If you don't know who she is, she's the goalie for the Minnesota Duluth Bulldogs, who also won WCHA Goalie Tender of the Year this year. And not only that, she actually played a couple of games in the QMJHL a few years back. I'm glad that the team is giving some younger players a chance. I definitely thought that they were going to make Corinne Schroeder on the team. Heck, I thought she was going to be on the team regardless because I definitely didn't expect Desbiens to make the team given her injury. Speaking of which, I have to assume that fans of Team Canada and the Montreal Victoire are breathing a lot easier given the news on Desbiens. That injury looked so bad when I saw it live and even made me quite nervous. I even saw suspicions that it could be a torn ACL, and when I read that, my heart was going like but given the fact that she was named to the team, it must not be as bad as we originally thought it would be. The team is yet to place her on long-term injured reserve, which if they did would likely be an indicator that it's quite serious. Montreal is also supposedly going to sign Trisha DeGuire to a 10-day contract per Jared Book, who was a camp invite back in training camp before the season started. I think it's still possible that we'll see Corinne Schroeder play if Desbiens not ready to go by the time the Worlds start in a couple weeks. Kinda like what Team USA did when they had 4 players that couldn't play in their most recent leg of the rivalry series due to injury. We're hoping that the team doesn't have to go that route though, fingers crossed. Now let's move on to other parts of the roster, starting with defense. Before that though, I actually forgot to mention that this time around they named 25 players to the roster over 23 from last year. Both Claire Thompson and Micah Zandy Hart will be making a return to the roster after both not being there last season. Last year, Claire Thompson took the year off from hockey as she finished off medical school, and Zandy Hart did battle a little bit of an injury at the start of last season, so she wasn't quite herself. I've loved watching Thompson play in the PWHL on both sides of the ice this year. It's clear that a year off hasn't thrown off her game. I just love her stick ability both offensively and defensively. Definitely one of my nominees for Defender of the Year this season. They even have Sophie Jakes on the roster this time around, keeping that Frost connection using these players instead of Ashton Bell and Jamie Bourbonnais. Bourbonnais has had a little bit of a lesser year with New York this time around, but I don't think her time with the team is over just yet. I think she may need a change of scenery perhaps in the PWHL, but I've watched her play and I've seen what she can do. Expect to see her on the team again in the future. Ashton Bell did miss a few games this season with injury, and she's also had a decreased role over in Ottawa. That's the thing that's tough for the 6-team league, is that some players aren't going to be playing in roles that their style of play is fit for. I'm really excited for expansion because it's going to give more players a chance to shine through. I'm going to make a video discussing expansion after the takeover tour is over. With the small league we have right now, a lot of players are being underused entirely, and it's making them look not as good as they actually are. Which is why I think a player like Bell wasn't selected this time around, but expect to see her again. However, I really love the addition of Jakes. She can skate, pass, defend, and even score for you once in a while, and I love players that can play a very good two-way game. And she's still only 24. I expect her to see her on the roster a lot more in the future, but they have so many players to choose from, it's just hard to tell who's going to stay and who's going to leave each time around. Oh, and I can't forget about Chloe Primerano as well. I was quite concerned that this team wasn't going to have any college players this time, but with Primerano and along with the addition of Gascon, I definitely was wrong, and I'm glad I was. Primerano was the first U20 player to play for the senior Canadian national team since guess who? Marie-Philippe Poulin. Given that 8D were named to the roster though, I don't expect to see her get a lot of playing time. But I think it's the experience and learning from the veterans that will help her develop into the star she's potentially to become. I believe she's the projected first overall pick for the 2028 draft. In case you didn't know, she was actually drafted by the Vancouver Giants in the 2022 WHL draft. She never actually played for them, but she was the first skater to ever be drafted by a CHL team, which should tell you how talented she is. This time though, she'll be taking the spot of Nicole Goalie on the national team roster. Goalie has been playing over at Clarkson University and is a projected first round pick this season, and is also the cousin of Julia. I was hoping that the team would give her another chance before she gets drafted so she can get that last bit of experience in. She's been excellent over at Clarkson, and I think she's going to slot into a top 4 role right away into the league. If I had to guess, I think she'll go more towards the end of the first round, possibly to a team like Montreal who could use a top 4D. But this draft discussion is for another video. Now on to the forwards. There's one key thing that I really wanted to talk about here, but before that, let's talk about the new additions and who they're taking the place of. For starters, both Julia Goalie and Jamie Lee Rattray were not named this time around. I kind of expected Rattray not to be there, given the fact that when she's always the 13th forward, and over in Boston this year, she's been up and down the lineup quite a bit. The subtraction of Goalie had me a bit surprised, given that she's still young and learning, but she has had not quite the season I think they hoped her to have in a rookie season over in Toronto. She still has lots of time to develop and make the team again in the future. Don't think this is going to be the final time you see her. Even though she's not there, I like the fact that they're giving new players a chance. Rookie Jennifer Gardner was named for her first ever appearance in the World, which has me super thrilled. I loved watching her performance in the second leg of the rivalry series. She's shown she's more than just a 13th forward, and she deserves it. I'd love to see her connection with Poulin and Stacy stick together, but with the reputation of the team's history, Poulin and Stacy typically don't play on the same line on the international stage. Daryl Watts is also making her first Worlds appearance as well, which it shocked me that that was questionable whether she'd even make it or not. She's currently tied for team lead in points on Toronto with 23, along with teammate Hannah Miller, which, speaking of which, it appears that Hannah Miller's request to play for Canada might have been granted since she was named to the roster. I don't know how the whole process worked in order to make this happen, but she was previously ineligible given the fact that she played for China back in the 2022 Olympics. But this season in the PWHL, she's been putting up MVP numbers, and it wouldn't make sense for her to not play for this team. She's just too good, and the biggest steal of the 2023 draft. I don't know exactly where you'd slot her into the lineup, given the fact that this is the first time she's played for this team since the U18 level. But Troy Ryan coaches her all the time over in Toronto, so I'm sure they can figure something out. I'm super excited to see how it goes. Now on to the point that I did want to talk about. I saw some people complaining about how particularly Michela Cava did not make the roster. You're a box score watcher, aren't you? It's okay to admit it. Now I don't disagree with the argument, but I can understand why she still wouldn't be here. It was argued that Cava should have been on the roster over a player like Kristin O'Neill. The box score stats may say that Cava is a better player than O'Neill, but keep in mind that you are trying to build a great team. You're not necessarily just trying to find the best players. PW Central actually said this last year as well when people were complaining about how Daryl Watts wasn't named to the team. Be sure to subscribe to her channel if you haven't. You may think that Cava is a much better player if you look at the offensive numbers, the plus-minus, and the penalty minutes. But a player like O'Neill is fast, great on the defensive side, and a great penalty killer, and you need players like that to succeed. Sometimes that style of play can get you penalties, but on Team Canada, she's going to be playing most likely on the fourth line, not going to be getting nearly as many minutes as she gets when she plays for the Victoire. Plus, the concern is that Cava has never played for the senior team at this level. If you want to give her a chance, I say give her a spot the next time the rivalry series comes around. I think that time is a great time to rotate players in and out. So those are my thoughts on this year's roster for Canada, as well as their goaltender situation. What are your thoughts on the roster? Do you agree with my opinions? Leave a comment below and we'll discuss it. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like. That's the best way to show your support. Be sure to also subscribe so you don't miss any more women's hockey content. And watch my most recent upload, which should be over here. In my next video, I'm going to talk a little bit of college hockey. That includes talking about Casey O'Brien winning the Patty Kazmaier Award, as well as some future prospects. Until then, that'll wrap it up for now. I'll see you next time.